Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I am Harshit Tyagi, and in this particular video we are going to talk about the art of reading research papers. Now, if you are someone who is associated with any domain of science or want to develop a deep and unbiased understanding of different topics, problems, or the entire domain, then you should look to educate yourself using the most authentic and scientific form of writing, which is research papers. Now, I have been personally struggling to build this habit of reading research papers for quite some time. And last week, I decided that this is something that is actually required in my line of work, and I should definitely get down to it. And I talked to a few researchers, I read a few books, a blog posts, and I read research papers around how to read a research paper. And there's a friend of mine, Anurag Ghosh, who works in the systems lab at Microsoft Research. So he's also a researcher. And I asked him a few very noob questions around, how many papers does he read? What kind of papers does he read? How does he find the right papers to read? Does he use any tools or softwares to keep track of all of his research work and all those kind of questions? And I have come up with this whole process. I have broken down the whole process and jotted down a bunch of techniques that one should follow in order to build this habit. And in this particular video, I'm going to share all of them with you. So let's first quickly understand what is a research paper. It is a highly congested and bland manuscript that compiles a thorough understanding of a particular topic or problem, along with the proposed solution and the research process that was carried out in order to understand that topic or that problem. Now, you're also given the efficacy of the solution, the assumptions that were made while coming up with the solution, and if there are any loopholes in the study. Now, researchers also document any ideas for future work. So, a research paper is not just an exceptional learning opportunity, but it is also paving the way for future advancements in the field. So, at the same time, it is very important to understand what a research paper is not. So, it is not a book. It is not an opinionated interpretation of any particular individual. And there's a common notion that a research paper is basically just a well-informed summary of a particular topic using many other sources. So that is totally false. That is not true. Now, why should you read a research paper? So there are basically three reasons. First of all is knowledge. Now, understanding a problem from someone who has spent years to solve it gives you an opportunity to build over that profound study. So you might not even care to think of the edge cases that the researcher has already taken care of. Second is exploration. Now, whether you have a pinpointed agenda or not, if you are reading research papers on a regular basis, then there's a very high chance that you will stumble upon an idea or any shortcomings that will give you an opportunity to build something out of it, maybe a product, a service, a web platform, or build a business around it. And the third is research and review. So most of the researchers basically read papers to review them for conferences, for classes, or to do a literature survey of a new field. And one of the main reasons research papers are written is to further the development in the field. For example, Jan LeCun wrote a paper in 1989 which talked about integrating domain constraints into backpropagation, which is basically the foundation of modern computer vision. And we have come so far that we are now talking about optimizing or perfecting object detection and autonomous vehicles. Not only that, when you are reading papers, there's a very high chance that you might come up with an idea to start up something of your own or to make a living out of it. And there are many companies based on research which are deeply invested into such practices. So in addition to these generic goals, if you need something more competitive or you need an end goal to your habit building exercise of reading research papers, then I suggest that you check out this ML reproducibility challenge. And these are like hosted, I think, twice a year, and they have some really top class papers from very world class conferences like NeurIPS, ICML, ICLR, and so on. And there are papers coming in from all sorts of domains. You have papers from representation learning, adversarial transformers, computer vision, NLP, so on and so forth. So this is basically hosted, alongside papers with code. So this is basically the website where you should check how to participate, what is the news about the challenge, and the papers or whatever work that you'll submit, it'll be peer reviewed with the open review, and you can find out the instructions on how to participate. They have this really cool news coming in, so I am really looking forward to this spring challenge, spring 2021 challenge, and this would be an interesting goal to have. I would try and first look at what happened in V1, V2, V3, as mentioned over here. So study what they have been doing in the past, and what sort of submissions are accepted and not accepted. I'll try and create a more detailed video around this, but this is something that should give you a goal and should be very interesting, and give you a sense of community as well. Now let's talk about the goals for reading research papers. Like, what should you read about? So there are basically two scenarios. Now the first scenario says that you have a particular goal, you are deeply invested in one particular domain. So for example, let's say if you are an NLP practitioner, you might want to learn about how GPT-3 is producing such groundbreaking results in natural language. And then comes the second scenario, which is to keep yourself abreast of the developments in a host of areas. So here you do not have an agenda, you do not have a goal, you are more of an explorer here. And let's say you want to understand how AlphaFold, which is a deep learning architecture, is solving a 50-year-old biological problem of understanding protein structures. So this is most often the case with beginners or people who are like consuming their daily dose of news from research papers. And yes, they exist. So if you are, let's say, an inquisitive beginner, so start off from scenario 2, shortlist a few papers to read about until you find your area of interest, and then you can just eventually lead to scenario 1. Now you must be wondering how to find those right papers. So listen to what my friend Anurag has to say about this.
Where you don't have a specific agenda, you just want to learn about topics.
Yeah.
I would say two things. So there's something called the morning paper, which is very popular. It's
Morning paper. Okay.
So they basically read a few papers a week, and it could be from any area of computer science. And there are obviously, and if you have certain specific areas that you like, so follow those people on Twitter. I think they usually put out their work through Twitter or maybe their website. So that's very, I think, useful for many people. I think the first problem that anyone has with starting to read research is to get overwhelmed, because I think there's a lot to read and people think, hey, I don't know this.
Yeah.
And okay, how do I go along with it? So first of all, pick a specific area. I think that's very important. Once you've picked a specific area, and then it's much easier to do, right? Because then you're not focused on what others are doing, so you just focus on that specific area. And then from there you basically start looking at like find a book that actually has these references. So a lot of these uh, books of that specific area, like for example in vision we have the book by Zisserman, which is very popular, or by Telesky, which is again popular. So those books have references to very, very good papers that you can read. So I would suggest build your reading habit from there, because uh, because because if you read any random paper, those papers build up on a lot of context.
Yeah.
And usually people don't have that sort of context. So if you read something that's seminal in nature, so the bigger point is how do you identify seminal papers? So it could be from a Reddit post also. So the book is my way of figuring out what are the seminal papers. It could be a Reddit post, it could be from YouTube, and first read seminal good papers, like papers that have one more simple tip that I would give is go to whatever area that you like. So for example, if you like vision, go to CVPR and look at their test of time award papers. So they have something called test of time. So you could just read those papers first, because those papers have stood the test of time. So it means that those papers have been 20 years and they are still very impactful in nature. So if you read those papers, you get the core ideas that this area wants to disseminate. Yeah, I think that is one very big tip. The other tip would be to talk to other people who are also reading up like you, and have a sense of community, because if you do this alone, you are going to falter. It's not going to happen. You should not do this alone. I always have a couple of friends I text, hey, look at this paper, look at that paper, and they text me back. So that sort of gives you this sense of community that okay, yeah, this is maybe I can discuss this paper or something like that. Research is collaborative. Even when you're reading, you have to be collaborative. It cannot be like you are an outsider who is reading this. You have to be someone who has friends who also do it. So it's a social activity. Yeah.
So in addition to these invaluable tips shared by Anurag, there are a number of web applications that I've shortlisted that help me narrow my search for the right papers to read. So for example, you see the subreddit on machine learning. So there are many researchers, practitioners, and engineers who share their work along with the papers that they found useful in achieving those results. So here you see you have discussions going on, and you have projects, people working on different sorts of technologies, and then there are research work that is being done by practitioners and researchers. So it has this research tag. You can click on it and you'll find a bunch of really good papers to read from. You can find out whatever you are interested in. You can involve and get involved in discussions that are going around, or around these papers and the work, the domain itself. Then there is Arxiv Sanity Preserver. So this is built by Andre Karpati to accelerate research, and it is a repository of 140,000 papers from computer science, machine learning, systems, AI, stats, CV, etc. And it also offers a bunch of filters, as you can see at the top here. You have most recent, top recent. Let's say if you click on top recent, you'll get the top papers. So you see 25th of February 2021. So all of these are like recent papers. Then you have top hype. So these top hype are papers where so many people are talking about it on social media. So you have 21 tweets around this paper. You can find similar paper. So click on show similar over here, and it'll show you the papers that are in some way related to the other paper. Then you can get involved in discussions here as well. You can simply sign up using username and password. Then we have Google Research. So the research teams at Google are working on problems that have like really high impact on our lives. So they share their publications for individuals and teams to learn, so contribute and expedite research. They also have a Google AI blog that you can check out. So here's the AI blog, and there you'll find a bunch of really cool blog posts and some very fancy technologies that people are working on at Google and the Google research teams. So definitely worth diving in, and you'll find a bunch of really good content over here. So after you have shortlisted the papers to read, then comes the process of reading these papers. Now remember, not every paper is useful to read, and we need a mechanism that can help us quickly screen these papers that are worth reading. So Anurag pointed me to this paper, which is written by S. Keshav, and he's from this David R. Shelton School of Computer Science, University of Waterloo. And he has written this paper on how to read a paper, and he proposes a 3-pass approach. So the approach proposes to read the paper in 3 passes instead of starting from the beginning and diving deep till the end. That's not how you do it. So the first pass is basically just a quick scan to capture a high-level view of the paper. Read the title, abstract, and introduction carefully, followed by the headings of the sections and subsections, and lastly, the conclusion. So it should not take you more than 5 to 10 minutes to move or to find out whether you want to move to the second pass or not. So you should know the category, the context, correctness, contribution, and clarity of the paper. And when you move to the second pass, now this is more of a focused read without checking for technical proofs. You take down all the crucial notes, underline all of the key points in the margin, carefully study the figures, diagrams, and illustrations, review the graphs, mark relevant unread references for further reading, and it helps you understand the background of the paper. Then comes the third pass. Now, this means that you have found a paper that you want to really dive in and you want to deeply understand or review. So the key to third pass is to reproduce the results of the paper. You check it for all the assumptions and jot down all the variations in your re-implementation and compare it with the original results. Now make note of all the ideas for future analysis, and it should take you, like if you're a beginner, it should take you 5 to 6 hours and 1 to 2 hours for experienced readers. So if you're sincere about reading research papers, your list of papers will soon overgrow into an overwhelming stack that is hard to keep track of. But fortunately, we have some softwares and tools that can help us in setting up a mechanism to manage our research. Just like this tool over here, which is Mendeley. Now, this is a tool which a platform in itself which is going to help you manage all of your research work. You can add the papers directly to your library from your browser, import documents, generate references and citations, collaborate with fellow researchers, and access your library from anywhere, from any platform, any computer. And this is mostly used by experienced researchers, and it is not free. But the free version, I think you can find Zotero. So Zotero is another tool which is open source and free, of course, and is used by many researchers. So as I talked to Anurag about this, he suggested this platform, and this is being used by many researchers in the field. It's free of cost, and you'll only have to pay if you want to like upgrade your storage space. So if you're just getting started in the field, you want to use something lightweight with the option to organize your papers or jot down notes and manage everything in one workspace without using any tool in general, and you are a Notion user, so I've created this board for myself. So I've created like 3 or 4 lists here: explore, to read, in progress, and completed. So each of these would contain the status, property, which is the date when I shortlisted this, what is my deadline, the URL to the paper. I've added different tags and at what pass this particular paper is, like first pass, second pass, third pass, as per my reading approach. So now when you'll start reading, you might witness a few symptoms, all harmless symptoms. So you might start feeling dumb, that you're not understanding anything that's written on the paper, and that is totally normal. Second, you will start beating your head against the wall because there are so many acronyms thrown your way. And the key is that you will have to simply look up every now and then, maybe open the paper up on 2 screens or do something like that, maybe find out a hack. Then you might find yourself pushing too hard to understand those technical proofs, those mathematical equations. And lastly, you might find yourself being stuck on a particular paragraph for too long, maybe an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. And the key is to just hang in there because we all know it's a hard nut to crack. So to wrap it up, here are the key takeaways. First of all, if you are a beginner, then start off with exploration, and then soon you will find your path to goal-oriented research. Second, in order to find good papers to read, you can use websites like Arxiv Sanity, Google Research, or subreddits like Machine Learning. And you can find a bunch of other websites and people to follow on Twitter who can who keep sharing good research papers. Then keep track of your research, your papers, your notes, your developments using tools like Zotero, Mendeley, or simply Notion. You can duplicate my Notion list as well. Then this can get overwhelming in no time. So make sure you start off easy and then increment your load progressively, because art is not a single method or a single step done over a weekend. It's a process of accomplishing remarkable results over a considerable amount of time. So if you found this video useful, do share it with your friends, your fellow researchers, students, analysts, scientists. Do not forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel to help us grow, and yeah, comment down below your thoughts if you have any other tips to start building this habit of reading research papers, or maybe you can tell me what sort of videos you would want me to record. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.